Hello, Virgo. Welcome to your timeless reading. This is for you when you find it. But as always, use your discernment when listening to these because you know your life and your situation's best. And these are just general readings. I'm like reading energy, so I don't like talk about like specific people or whatever. I'm talking about like general vibes of like where you are in your soul's growth and like how maybe to navigate this next chapter, and if it's like confirmation or gives you some like little tidbits that are helpful, then that's the point. And if not, like just turn it off. Obviously. Okay, excuse me. Cards. I'm using the Prism Tarot and my Iris Oracle for you today. Great. Anything else from this Iris Oracle? Yes. And then Prism Tarot. I see no bowl, broken and hatched, and the one who hides from the sun. This is a whole stack. That's too many. Okay. Oops. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? No. Okay. We got no bowl. We got broken and hatched. The one who hides from the sun. 5 of clouds, aka 5 of swords, defeat. Temperance, just breathe. The fool, take the leap. The chariot, momentum. 7 of raindrop, choices. Beautiful. Okay. Well, I think we should kind of start with this and maybe this, and I'll read from my little booklet. But I think there's kind of like this mood of just like, I think not having a lot of energy is what I'm getting, like to kind of do anything. Kind of like, when people like get depressed and they like don't even want to get out of bed. I'm not saying that you're that low, but there kind of might be like a lack of motivation and just sort of, okay, here we go. Mischievous little thing, look at what has happened here. Is someone blocking your sun? Why would they do that? Was there not enough sun to share? Some people feel that if they share or give to others, they will suffer a loss. But what they have done is created loss and loneliness. If you are living in a shadow, trust that you will be reunited with the light. So lately, Virgo, I've been reading a lot about Kabbalah. It is my intention to learn a lot more about it, but I'm kind of reading like the introduction to Kabbalah. And part of like the question we have in life is like, why do bad things happen? And I guess the theory is like on this Earth planet, we like in heaven or whatever's next or some other dimension, like everything is great all the time, but the like universe wanted to experience what it feels like to be able to create that light and that happiness. So therefore there was darkness, and the darkness is like layers of cloth over a lamp. So the point was, when the lamp is on, it's always on, but if you put a bunch of blankets over it, then you are not going to see it. Likewise, if you turn on a light in the middle of the day or a candle in the middle of the day, it doesn't have the same impact as it does in the darkness. So kind of a part of what I'm also picking up in your message, Virgo, is that like whatever is like negative or kind of like holding you back in life or something that feels like an obstacle, it's also there for a reason. And there might be this element kind of like having to accept this defeat, right, as a part of your path. That, or this like kind of like whatever the low energy situation is, it's like there is this kind of like feeling, I think, of accepting it in order to transmute it. Because we also got temperance, just breathe, but this is often about, with these two things, like alchemy or transmuting things. Okay, so I hope I've made a little bit of sense, but in a way, Virgo, to start off, you're in like a dark place. And you're in this dark place because things haven't been working out. There's all this evidence of darkness, but the message wants to connect you with the idea that this darkness, this defeat, this low point, this is serving a greater purpose in your growth and in your journey. And the sooner you can kind of like embrace this negative setback, this like shadow that's kind of like over your life, as soon as you can kind of like start to look at this shadow as something that is actually helping you or is part of your process, right? So, for example, these are examples, a breakup. A breakup, maybe you feel like, oh, that person, you know, I miss them. That's all I can think about. It's hard to go about my daily business. It's hard to just go to work and do what I do because I'm just thinking about that, like, sore spot in my life. And Temperance, I think, wants you to transmute that. Just breathe, as in just connect with this moment, and also just accept that what has happened that has been difficult and hard and disappointing and frustrating and bringing you down is a part of you having more light in your life. So I know that can be glib or not always appropriate to say. I mean, if you have like a death of a loved one and I'm here like telling you like, oh, just accept it as a part of your journey, you know, that can be not helpful, and it can be painful for people to tell you that kind of stuff. So I'm not here to like diminish the reality of whatever suffering or grief you might be experiencing, but it doesn't quite feel like it's about grief because I don't see like a 5 of Cups type of card. It feels more like with the defeat, it feels more like the energy is like, what's the point? So take all this with a grain of salt. I think what we're talking about, Virgo, is more a disappointment. I've invested my energy a lot in something, but the shadow is obscuring the light. Obscuring the light, all I see is the shadow and the darkness. All I feel is the defeat, and the defeat starts to feel like it's defining me in my life. But if I can accept that defeat, if I can accept where I've put my energy in the wrong places as just a part of my journey, Temperance, just breathe, kind of accept it, kind of like transmute it, alchemize it by incorporating it into my story of my life, i.e., I mean, you know, there's all those stories about like actors who slept in their cars and then they made it big. Again, a little problematic, I think, because homelessness is a real issue, and not everyone houselessness, not everyone who is unhoused is gonna have like that kind of story. So forgive me, I'm still working out how to communicate appropriately these details, but with those stories of like the people who made it really big and they lived in their car, them living in their car is part of the fun of their journey. The fun, Jesus, you get what I'm saying, right? Like the dark period that they were in was part of what made the light that much brighter when the light came. It's those dark spots in our lives of the struggle that when we overcome them, or when we transmute them, or when we find the light, then the light is all that much brighter. I.e. what I said earlier, when you light a candle in the daylight, you don't see it, but when you light a candle in the darkness, it has a very big impact. Even the Kabbalah book I'm reading talks about how like, even a candle on a football field in the darkness, you see it from anywhere in the football field, even though the football field is really big. So again, I think my point in the message isn't to be glib about dark realities and how they're not like necessarily always fun anecdotes, but in your particular life and just your individual experience, whatever this defeat that's been kind of like bringing you down, if you can kind of like find it in you to believe that it's true, that it's just a part of the path that you've been on, that is like the story's not over. I think that's a better way of saying all this, like your story's not over, so like breathe, know that things are going to change, and know that you kind of have the power to transmute it. How? Like only just by kind of, I mean, someone just said, I just got a reading, and so now I'm giving you this information for free. Wow. Look at you. Okay, so she was just saying, take the bad things in your life and find the things in those circumstances that you have to be grateful for, even if it's just like how you handled a bad situation, or how you got out of it, or how it's not like happening in the present moment, right? So that's Broken and Hatched. Broken and Hatched, I think, is you getting this fresh start. You kind of like, I mean, and also with the Fool, right? Take the leap. So, yeah. Whew. It's like basically you get to make some choices here. Wow. I mean, this is kind of crazy. This reading is like literally just the reading I just got. Except that reading was very expensive, and this one is free on YouTube, and 12 of you are gonna watch it. But listen, this is like expensive information I'm giving you right now. That's the truth. So I should get paid for this probably, but I will work on that. But let's talk about me for a second, for example, right? Like, here I am giving this information for you on YouTube that's very valuable. I can make some changes too, right? About how I go about all this. So that's the Broken and Hatched. It's like kind of recognizing like, hey, maybe I've been so like colored by the idea of defeat, and like I have nothing to offer, and like nothing is good enough, that I just don't even see the situation from a new perspective. Temperance, alchemizing it, just breathe to see like, okay, actually there's a different way of looking and telling the story where there's a happier ending to it. And that's Take the Leap and Broken and Hatched. I'll read Broken and Hatched to you, just because I've been doing that lately. The ability to see new perspective comes from a rude awakening. That which breaks you also sets you free. Leave your comfort zone and your shell behind. Honor that which was destroyed and torn down in your life, because although difficult, it has aided you in hatching. Isn't that like literally everything I just said? So, take the leap, right? Kind of like, now that you know what you know, and now that you're able to see things kind of a little bit differently and kind of shift that perspective, Broken and Hatched, breaking free, breaking open into a new way of going about it, i.e. for me, realizing that these messages that I'm giving, even if they're not like hooked up to the algorithm on YouTube and being like watched by a bunch of people, like I'm giving valuable information that is helpful and that is valuable too, right? So I can start making different choices in my life about how I go about this. And maybe that's my journey, but I'm sharing my journey to connect you with maybe something in your life where you're selling yourself short, right? And you can make different choices. Like maybe part of the reason why there's been this darkness is because you haven't, like, as per Kabbalah, taken off those cloths off of the lamp, right? Like you can just take off some cloths on your lamp that's already on, and then all of a sudden there's light, i.e. removing some temperance, removing some layers of how you're seeing it, reframing feels like a big part of this, and then starting to make some different choices, and realizing that you have choices, right? Realizing that you have paths available to you. My friend just told me a story about how she just applied to a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn, right? I mean, that's pretty accessible to everyone. She applied to a bunch of stuff. She ended up getting a job, and the job is like a job in this like creative community where her ideas are valued, and like she's like really being heard, and she's like having fun, and she's getting to exercise her creativity, and in a way it's kind of perfect for her. And there's the potential for like upward growth and mobility. And her old environment was totally toxic, and like she was underpaid there, and like no one like valued her, and now she's in a completely different situation. And how did she do that? She took the leap. She just kind of put it out there, and she broke out of that old way of being just by kind of believing in herself and kind of understanding like the way things have been aren't the way things are always going to be, and there are paths and choices, i.e. there are multiple choices. She threw a bunch of darts at the board at LinkedIn again, and I bring up that story because LinkedIn is, anyone can go on LinkedIn and apply to a bunch of stuff, right? And it feels kind of like, why, what's the point? But she got a great job out of it. So what's meant for you won't pass you by, and you too can kind of like get to a new place with all this. And part of it is just, maybe there's like some resistance here, right? Because that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the reading, was like that energy of like when you're so depressed you just can't get out of bed. So then maybe that, if that were the case, like I'm so depressed I can't even get out of bed, it's like maybe I'm making small choices for myself every day. Just breathe. My first step is like, I'm gonna get out of bed. So when I get out of bed and I go shower, maybe giving myself some credit for that, right? Like, oh, I did it. I got out of bed and I showered, like, good for me. And that might seem silly, but I think that's how you can build some momentum, right? Is like the more you validate every small step you take and every time you make a new choice. Actually, that's something else that Kabbalah talks about. I'm like really into Kabbalah. We'll see how much I learn. But Kabbalah was talking about the way you bring more light into your life is not by doing the morally or ethically correct thing. It's by changing your reactive habits and making proactive choices towards different results. So an example of that was, there's $10,000 on a table. The first person comes in, steals the money. Second person comes in, gets freaked out by the idea of stealing the money and runs away. The third person, almost goes to steal the money, has a second thought, and then leaves and just leaves the money on the table. And then the fourth person comes in, sees the money, reports it to the authorities, has the police come and collect the money, leaves a note on the table for the person like, hi, we found a lot of money. If you want to find the money, go to the police. And it was like, who's the person who got the most enlightened out of that situation? You might think it was the fourth person, but it was actually the third person, because the third person was the person, like the first two people were reacting to their fear or to their desires and like just kind of going like unconsciously through a pattern. The third person was the only person who almost took an action and then made a different choice. The fourth person was acting from like morals and ethics, and that can feed the ego in a way, because then we're like, oh, I'm such a good person, I do the right thing, which isn't really a change. So we're talking about choices and momentum, making different choices to build momentum, and that is all about just making different choices about how you go about things brings in more of that light, and that gets rid of some of this darkness, and that builds again this momentum. So that is my no bull answer for you, Virgo, is like, you have the power to make small shifts that end up adding up and building momentum. And it's about taking the leap and breaking out of the patterns that have been keeping you stuck, which, I mean, frankly, I need this message too, and I don't really have any Virgo placements, but whatever. A Virgo gifted me that reading where I just divulged some of those expensive secrets to you, so I guess it is for you, Virgo, because you paid for it. Okay, no bull. This card wants to confront you with those little white lies you might feed yourself or accept from other people. It's time to get rid of all that bull. Oh my god, I love when this just basically says what I said. This card is as stubborn as it gets, and if you don't look at these little falsehoods right now and try to move around this card, it's not moving. Damn. What did I literally just say about all of this? So, Virgo, there's not much more to say because it's been said by both the cards and yours truly. And we can start making different choices about how we go about things. And I think I am gonna see if I can make this into more of a career for myself. But that's my journey. Your journey is you figuring out what it is for you that you have gifts for that you've been not acknowledging because you felt just defeated. All right. Until next time, Virgo. I love you very much. Thank you for all the gifts you've given me in my life. It's my pleasure to give you this reading. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And hopefully working with you in the future. Like and subscribe if this resonated with you. And I think it probably resonated with you. Because it was pretty good. I'm pretty proud of this one. Alright. Love you. Bye.